It is quiet. So quiet you can almost hear the dust floating through the beams of pale light. You stir beneath a thin wool blanket, rough against your skin. The straw mattress beneath you crackles softly as you shift. There's a familiar crunch, fleas perhaps, or just old broken straw. You don't dare check. If you found anything alive sharing your bed, what would you even do? Besides, you're too tired to care. The morning doesn't so much arrive as seep in slowly, like cold water creeping into your shoes. The air is damp, heavy. The stone walls of your small home breathe with the chill. You draw the blanket tighter around your shoulders, though it doesn't help much. The wool has absorbed years of other people's sweat and regret. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster begins its dutiful lie. The sun is coming, but you know better. It's still too dark. The rooster crows because it's hungry, not because it can tell time. You blink slowly, eyes sticky from a restless night. The silence presses against you like an old, heavy coat. You are not awake yet, not fully. You are still hovering somewhere between this world and the one you visit in your sleep. That strange, quiet world where faces are blurred, voices are faint, and even your fears feel far away. But here, the fears are clearer, hungrier. The hunger gnaws at your stomach. You haven't eaten well in days, but that's not unusual. Food is a generous visitor. It comes when it pleases and leaves without saying goodbye. You listen to the muffled sounds of your small village beginning to stir. A cartwheel squeaks. A dog whines. Footsteps pad softly over packed dirt. Even in their waking, the people here move like ghosts. The door creaks slightly in its frame as the breeze pushes against it. You glance at the wooden latch. The door doesn't lock, but there's nothing worth stealing here anyway, except perhaps your hope, and even that's been in short supply. You close your eyes again for just a moment longer, and then a question creeps in, quiet but sharp, like a splinter beneath your skin. What if history never remembers you? What if you lived, suffered, dreamed, and died, and nothing remained? No song, no story, no name carved into anything that outlasts the rain. The thought is not new. It visits often like a stray cat, unwanted but familiar. You are no lord, no knight, no saint. You are just here. The world outside your door is old, older than your father's father, and yet, as it groans beneath the weight of war, hunger, and whispered sins, it somehow forgets people like you, quiet people, small people. You wonder, as you often do, if being forgotten would be a mercy. The rooster calls again, a little more insistent this time. A small fire smolders in the hearth, though it barely warms the air. Your breath leaves faint trails as you exhale, like tiny ghosts escaping your chest. You sit up slowly. The blanket slips from your shoulders and the chill bites your skin like tiny teeth. Your head feels heavy today. Not painful exactly, just full. A dull weight behind your eyes. You blink again, trying to clear it. They would say your humors are out of balance. Too much black bile, perhaps, or not enough blood. Of course, the only way to be sure would be to let some blood out and see if you feel better. That's how medicine works here. You're not a doctor, but then again, neither are most doctors. You hear a soft shuffle beside you. Your younger brother is still asleep, his back turned towards you, curled like a question mark. His breathing is steady, untroubled. For now. The door creaks again, but not from the wind this time. Footsteps approach, soft, deliberate. You recognize the sound. Heavy boots sinking slightly into the damp earth outside. The village path is always a little muddy in the mornings. You pause, listening. There's a knock. Gentle, but unnecessary. Your door barely closes, let alone locks. You don't answer right away. You let the silence stretch, as if hoping the visitor might change his mind. But of course he doesn't. You step toward the door and lift the wooden latch. The door sighs open. Standing before you is a man wrapped in a heavy wool cloak, frayed at the edges. The kind of cloak that's seen more winters than good decisions. His beard is uneven, his face thin. A leather bag hangs at his side. It jingles faintly with every movement. Bottles. Tools. Things you'd rather not think about. He smiles, but only with his mouth. His eyes remain still. "Ah," he says softly, "you're awake. That's good." You nod, though you're not sure why. No one ever asks if you want to be awake. He steps inside without waiting for an invitation. That's how people are here. Privacy is a luxury you've never owned. The man sets his bag gently on your table. The wood groans under the weight. He glances around your small room with the slow, detached curiosity of someone taking stock of an animal pen. Not disgusted, just distant. He says, "I am Master Aldrich, physician." The word hangs in the air like smoke. Physician. It sounds impressive, but you know better. In this village, a physician is someone who knows just enough to be dangerous. A little knowledge, a lot of confidence, and sharp tools. But still, people listen to him, because what else can they do? He pulls out a small stool and sits, motioning for you to do the same. You sit. The stool wobbles under your weight, but holds. He studies your face for a long moment, as though reading a map only he can see. He says, "You've been troubled," he says gently. It's not a question. You nod again. His voice lowers, softer now, almost like a lullaby. Dark thoughts, heavy heart, little appetite, sleep that wanders, but never rests. You blink. The words feel too close, too accurate. How does he know? But then, it's not difficult. Everyone here carries some weight. Hunger, grief, regret. It's easy to guess. Master Aldrich opens his bag and pulls out a small vial filled with cloudy liquid. He holds it up to the light, as if expecting it to whisper secrets. "The humors," he murmurs. "Always the humors." You've heard this before. Everyone has. The 4 sacred fluids that govern the body: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. Balance them, and you are well. Disturb them, and, well, you are not. He reaches for your wrist, fingers cold as they press into your skin, feeling your pulse. He closes his eyes briefly. Whether he's counting or praying, you're not sure. Finally, he releases your wrist and opens his eyes again. You are too full of black bile, melancholy. The word tastes heavy in your ears. Melancholy. A polite way to say sadness that won't leave. A polite way to say broken. But it sounds almost beautiful when he says it, like a distant song you can't quite remember. Master Aldrich continues, voice calm, slow, as if afraid to wake something sleeping inside you. But do not fear. We can ease the burden. We can release the weight. You already know what he means. The same thing they always suggest: letting the blood out. Because surely if your sadness lives inside your veins, it can be drained, like rainwater from a leaky roof. He gently opens a small leather roll from his bag. Inside, neatly arranged like silver worms, are sharp, thin blades, some curved, some straight. They gleam softly in the morning light. You try not to stare. Master Aldrich smiles again, this time with a hint of comfort, as if you were a frightened child and he a kind uncle offering reassurance. Just a little. Enough to bring balance, he murmurs,
You will feel lighter after. You glance down at your hands resting on your lap. Cold. Pale. Do you feel heavy? Or is it simply the weight of being alive? You do not protest. What would the point be? No one refuses the physician. Besides, what if it works? What if the sadness really can be drained? What if you wake up tomorrow feeling whole? He stands and begins preparing his tools, humming softly under his breath. The melody is old, thin, like a song sung by someone who never really liked singing. You close your eyes briefly, breathing slowly. The fire crackles softly in the hearth. Your brother stirs in his sleep behind you, murmuring something you cannot quite hear. Outside, the village moves like a half-forgotten dream. Soft voices, distant footsteps, the faint metallic clang of a hammer meeting anvil. The world continues. The sadness remains. But for now, you sit, waiting to be lighter, waiting to be fixed.
The cut was small, barely more than a scratch. Yet it bled with the enthusiasm of an old well finally releasing its water. Master Aldrich held a small clay bowl beneath your arm, catching the slow, steady drip. The blood gathered there looked darker than you expected, like liquid rust. You watched the bowl, eyes half closed, as if you could see the sadness pouring out, as if you could measure it. But the weight in your chest remained. Master Aldrich hummed again, wiping your skin gently with a rough cloth. "Good," he whispered. "You will feel clearer by nightfall." You nodded, but didn't answer. You felt only tired. Not better, just tired. He packed his tools carefully, wrapping each blade in soft cloth, as though afraid they might whisper secrets if left exposed. When he was done, he gave you another thin smile. You've taken the first step. The body listens if we speak to it gently. And with that, he left. No payment was discussed. No promise of return. In this village, people pay what they can when they can, sometimes in coin, more often in chickens or silence. You sat there for a while, watching the embers in the hearth dim. The room smelled faintly of blood now, mixing with the damp wool and ash. Your brother finally stirred behind you. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, looking at the drying bowl of blood on the table. His voice was soft, sleepy. "Did the doctor fix you?" You didn't answer. Not because you were angry, just because you didn't know what to say. He lay back down, already slipping into another dream, as if this morning never happened. As if nothing strange ever does. But something does. It always does. Just quietly. Later that afternoon, you heard another knock. Not the soft, cautious knock of Master Aldrich. This one was heavier, slower. The door creaked open before you reached it. The priest stepped inside. Father Emmerich, a tall man who always seemed to duck slightly indoors as though God himself might strike him for forgetting his place. His robe was worn, the brown fabric patched and faded from years of village life. He smelled faintly of old incense and damp stone. His face, lined and pale, carried the weight of everyone else's sins. "You've seen the physician," he said softly, without greeting.
It was not a question. You nodded. He looked at you carefully, as if trying to see something beneath your skin. The body is simple, he said, but the soul is not. You said nothing. That's how conversations work with Father Emmerich. You listen, he explains. The physician treats the body, but the mind, the heart, the spirit, these belong to God, and sometimes to darker forces. You swallowed, throat dry. Here it was again. The quiet suggestion, the fear that lives in every corner of this village. If you are too sad for too long, if your thoughts wander too far, if you cry without reason or lose your appetite for life, perhaps it is not only black bile that burdens you. Perhaps it is something darker, something watching, something waiting. Father Emmerich's voice softened, almost kind. Have you prayed? You nodded again. Every day. He smiled gently, placing a hand on your shoulder. His fingers were cold, but steady. Good. That is good. A pause. But prayer sometimes needs help, reflection, confession. You knew where this was going. Confession. The medicine of the soul. You open yourself like a wound, and he applies the salve of forgiveness, or judgment, or both. Come, he said softly. The chapel is quiet. You followed him, because what else could you do? You always follow. That is how you stay safe. The chapel stood just beyond the square, its stone walls hunched like an old woman hiding from the wind. Inside, the air was cold, still. It smelled of old wood, melting tallow, and something sweeter, dried lavender tucked near the altar to mask the scent of mold. The flickering candles cast long, thin shadows across the stone floor. The silence was thick here. It always is. As though the building itself listens and remembers. You sat in the small wooden booth, the priest on one side, you on the other, only a thin lattice between you, as if distance could soften the truth. Speak, he whispered.
The chapel door closed behind you with a soft click. The village was quieter now, the kind of quiet that feels too deliberate, as though the world is holding its breath, waiting for something. You walked slowly across the square, your feet pressing into the soft dirt, your breath rising in thin white ribbons. The air had grown colder since sunset. The sky above you was wide and deep, brushed with the faintest blues and purples that the sun left behind. But it was the moon that pulled your eyes upward. It hung heavy tonight, full, round, bright, the kind of moon that seems too large, too close, almost curious, almost watching. You paused. It's strange, you thought, how something so distant can feel so near, like an eye that never blinks. You remembered what old Marta had whispered once by the well. The moon stirs the water, and the mind is nothing but wet threads. When it pulls too hard, the threads tangle. People here believe such things, because what else could explain it? The farmer's wife who began weeping in the market for no reason. The blacksmith's son who stopped speaking one winter and never started again. The boy who laughed too loudly during Mass and was found days later in the woods, his eyes wild, his words twisted. The moon. Always the moon. It tugs at the oceans, they say. And if it can pull the seas, surely it can pull at your thoughts. Loosen them. Scatter them. Make them strange. You take another step forward, but your eyes stay fixed upward. The moon stares silent, patient, hungry perhaps. The door to your home creaks as you enter, but no one stirs. Your brother sleeps again, soft breaths curling through the air like tiny ghosts. The fire has dimmed to faint embers. You sit beside it, watching the slow dance of orange and red as they struggle against the cold. And you feel it again, the weight. Not in your limbs, not in your bones, but somewhere behind your eyes, heavy but formless. You think of the physician's words, black bile. You think of Father Emmerich's whisper, the devil wears your face. And now you think of Marta's voice, the moon stirs the water. Perhaps it is all of them. Perhaps it is none. You lean back slowly, resting against the rough wall. The stones feel cool against your skin. Your eyelids grow heavier. The room breathes softly around you, the crackling of the embers, the distant howl of a restless dog, the low whistle of wind through tiny cracks in the wood. Outside, the moon glows brighter, and you wonder, what if the moon knows you, knows your name, knows your weakness? What if it watches not because it can, but because it must? Because this is its game. What if it has always known the soft places in your mind, the thin threads that tangle too easily, the parts of you that you hide, even from yourself? Your breathing slows, your thoughts drift, the weight remains, but it grows quieter, as if even the sadness is tired now. You close your eyes, and as sleep pulls you soft and slow, you feel the moon's gaze slip gently through the cracks of your home. It does not blink, it does not judge, it simply waits. The wind hums softly outside, like an old lullaby without words. Somewhere, a bell tolls once, a distant, hollow sound carried through the night, and still the moon watches, always watching. The moon finally dipped behind the trees as morning returned, not with joy, but simply because it must. You wake slowly, as always. Your head feels a little lighter, but not in the way you hoped. More hollow than healed. Your brother is already gone, out to gather wood before the day grows colder. The fire has burned itself to ash again, leaving behind the soft smell of old smoke and damp stone. You sit up. The cut on your arm from yesterday's bloodletting itches faintly, but it's clean. You wonder, did the sadness bleed out, or does it still sit somewhere deeper, where no knife can reach? A soft knock again, but this time it isn't Master Aldrich. The door opens gently. Marta stands there, the old midwife, her hands always full of odd herbs and half-believed wisdom. She steps in, moving like a whisper, her gray hair pulled tightly back under a faded scarf. Her face carries the familiar lines of someone who has lived long enough to stop pretending certainty. She says, "I heard the physician visited you." You nod. She adds, "Bloodletting," almost sighing. Always bloodletting. She opens a small cloth bundle on her lap, revealing a few sprigs of herbs, dried roots, and a tiny clay jar. "Your humors may need gentler persuasion," she continues, "a little balance from the earth itself." You watch quietly as she begins to mix something in a small wooden cup, water, honey, and ground valerian root, one of the few plants they believe can soothe a restless mind. She explains, "It calms the vapors. The vapors rise when the brain is too warm, or too cold. It depends who you ask." You've heard this before. Everyone in the village knows. The brain isn't just a place for thoughts. It's where the humors rise and fall like restless tides. Too much black bile clouds your thoughts. Too much yellow bile makes you angry. Too much blood, too joyful, which somehow is also dangerous. Balance is everything, and balance is delicate. The physician believes in blades. The priest believes in confession. Marta believes in plants, and none of them fully understand. You take the bitter drink she offers. It tastes like dirt and regret, but you drink it anyway, because saying no feels harder than swallowing. She watches you carefully. Her voice lowers again, almost like a secret. "In the great cities, they burn herbs to cleanse the air, sweet smoke to chase away the miasma." She glances toward the tiny window. But here, the air is always heavy, always damp. The bad air sinks into your skin. Miasma. The invisible poison they believe floats through foul air, seeping into lungs, spreading illness. It explains fevers. It explains plagues. It explains whatever cannot be explained. The truth, of course, is simpler and sadder. They do not understand. Not the humors, not the brain, not the sadness that seeps into people like cold water into their boots. You remember hearing once about scholars in distant lands, men with books and ink-stained fingers. They write long scrolls about madness, melancholy, divine punishment, and celestial misalignments. Their words sound wise, but their treatments, still knives, still prayers, still smoke. Marta gently touches your wrist. Her fingers are thin, soft, warm. She says, "You will rest today. Let the humors settle." You nod again, grateful for her calm voice, even if her hope feels misplaced. Outside, the village continues its slow movements. The distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer, the bleating of goats,
the faint cries of children playing beside the well. You close your eyes, and as the bitter taste still lingers in your mouth, you wonder, what if none of it works? What if the bloodletting, the herbs, the prayers are all just different ways of waiting for something you cannot name? What if you are not imbalanced? What if you are simply broken? And what if broken things have no cures? The fire crackles softly beside you. The room breathes its familiar smells: wool, smoke, damp earth. You listen to all of it as sleep tugs at you again. Not healing sleep, but soft forgetting. The kind of sleep that wraps around you like heavy wool, warm but suffocating. And somewhere behind the clouds, the moon still lingers, watching.
The night returns again, because it always does, and with it the familiar heaviness. You lie awake beneath your thin blanket. Your brother breathes quietly beside you, his sleep still innocent. The fire has faded to little more than a soft glow, casting long, thin shadows across the rough stone walls. You listen to the wind pressing against the door, to the distant moan of the trees beyond the village, to your own breath. The weight behind your eyes remains, not sharp, not painful, just full. You try to count your breaths, as Marta taught you, a way to still the mind, to quiet the thoughts. But tonight, the counting brings little peace. Because tonight, the shadows seem thicker, longer, almost alive. You remind yourself what you've been told. Your humors are out of balance. The bloodletting will help. The herbs will calm. The prayers will protect. But none of them speak of the shadows, the soft, creeping unease that coils quietly in your chest, the feeling that something watches from just beyond the edges of the light. You've heard the whispers around the village, not about you, not yet, but about others. The miller's daughter who began talking to empty corners, the shepherd who heard voices in the trees, the boy who laughed at funerals and wept during feasts. At first they spoke of humors, but when that failed, they spoke of something else, something older, something darker, demons. They do not say it loudly, not at first, because once the word is spoken, it cannot be easily unsaid. And once it is believed, it cannot be easily undone. The priest spoke of it gently during confession. The devil whispers into weak minds. The physician hinted at it when he muttered about invisible forces. Marta only shook her head, as if the thought itself left a bitter taste. But here, alone in the flickering half-light, you feel it more clearly. Not a voice exactly, not even a sound, just a presence, soft, heavy, close. You turn your head toward the small window. The clouds have thinned. The moon glows full again, silver and patient. It spills pale light across the room, giving the shadows sharper edges. And for a moment, the thought slips into your mind, soft as breath. What if it's not only the moon watching you? What if something else watches too? Something that waits for minds grown tired, for spirits weighed down, for hearts left hollow. The stories always began like this. Whispers at the edge of sleep, a heaviness that never lifts, strange dreams, odd thoughts, lonely conversations with no one. You close your eyes tightly, as if that could push back whatever waits beyond them. You think of the old stories, the ones no one tells in daylight. How sadness can open a door, how grief can invite company, how spirits find their way into empty rooms, empty hearts, empty minds. The priest calls it temptation. The physician calls it imbalance. The midwife calls it mischief. But you simply feel it. A soft growing quiet inside your head, as though your own thoughts have stepped aside to make room for something else. Outside, the wind sighs again. The trees groan softly under the weight of the night. A dog whimpers somewhere far off. The village sleeps unaware, and you lay there, eyes closed, but very much awake. Listening, waiting, wondering. What if it's already here? Not something coming. Something that never left. Something that settled in quietly. the way cold slips into your bones. Your breath slows, not in peace, but in surrender, as if fighting the heaviness takes more energy than you have left. You feel your body soften into the mattress, the straw beneath you shifting softly, the blanket growing heavier with every moment. And somewhere above, the moon still watches, its pale face unblinking, silent, content.
The chapel bells call you again. Their hollow tones drift gently across the village, folding themselves into the morning mist like tired birds returning to nests. You walk slowly toward the stone chapel. The ground is soft from last night's rain. Your feet press into the damp earth with each quiet step, as if the land itself wishes to pull you down, to hold you still. Father Emmerich waits inside. He always does. The old wooden door sighs as you push it open. The smell of smoke and melting tallow greets you, along with the heavy stillness that always lives here. The priest stands near the altar, his thin fingers tracing slow circles along the edge of a worn book. He looks up and smiles softly, but his eyes carry a different weight today. "You've come," he says quietly. "You feel it growing, don't you?" You swallow, throat dry. There's no point in denying it. He would only smile and say, "The devil works best when unrecognized." You sit where he gestures, on the low wooden bench beneath the heavy crucifix. The Christ above you hangs silent, stone eyes half closed, as if he has grown tired of the weight in this village. Father Emmerich begins speaking softly, his voice a calm stream flowing through an anxious forest. "The enemy is clever," he says. "He does not always shout. Sometimes he whispers. Sometimes he simply waits, watching for hearts softened by sorrow. You stare at the cold stone floor beneath your feet. The cracks between the slabs form thin winding paths, like roots or veins or old maps leading nowhere. You are vulnerable, but you are not lost. We have prayers for this, rites to strengthen your soul." The words fall gently, like snow, soft, cold, heavy. You nod slowly, because what else can you do? To protest would invite suspicion. To resist might suggest
collaboration. Agreement is safer, even if it offers no comfort. He steps closer, lowering his voice to something almost tender. There are precautions we must take, he whispers. Not an exorcism, not yet. Only small prayers of cleansing, minor protections, simple rituals. The word hovers in the air. Exorcism. A quiet threat dressed in mercy. You've heard the stories. Everyone has. How a priest, robes heavy with symbols, chants for hours. How the afflicted twist and scream, their voices not their own. How villagers gather outside to listen, pretending to pray, but only watching, waiting, whispering. Exorcism is not medicine. It is performance, a public peeling of the soul. Father Emmerich smiles gently. There's no shame in vigilance, he says. We guard the soul before it falls. You are still strong. We will keep you strong. He places a small vial into your hand. The glass is cool against your skin. Inside, a thick oil swirls faintly, smelling of bitter herbs and old earth. Anoint your door before you sleep, he instructs softly. It keeps out wandering spirits. Wandering spirits, as if sadness could attract them, as if your sorrow shines like a beacon in the dark. You nod again, because it's easier than asking questions, because you are tired, so very tired. The priest steps back and begins to hum softly, a chant you've heard since childhood, words older than the village, older than your sorrow, older perhaps than even the fear that lives here. You sit quietly, letting his voice wash over you. The low, steady rhythm pulls at your heavy eyelids. The warmth of the chapel presses against your skin, soft and slow. Outside, the day moves on without you. The village breathes. Chickens squabble near the well. A dog barks once, then falls silent. And above it all, hidden behind the thin clouds, the moon waits again. Even in daylight, always watching, always patient, always near. The chant fades. The silence returns. You are safe, Father Emmerich whispers, as much to himself as to you. But you know better. Safety here is a fragile thing, a word people use when they mean you are not dangerous yet. You rise slowly. The vial of oil feels heavier in your hand than its size should allow. You thank him quietly, because gratitude is expected. As you step back into the cold air, you feel the eyes, not the priest. The chapel bells call you again. Their hollow tones drift gently across the village, folding themselves into the morning mist like tired birds returning to nests. You walk slowly toward the stone chapel. The ground is soft from last night's rain. Your feet press into the damp earth with each quiet step, as if the land itself wishes to pull you down, to hold you still. Father Emmerich waits inside. He always does. The old wooden door sighs as you push it open. The smell of smoke and melting tallow greets you, along with the heavy stillness that always lives here. The priest stands near the altar, his thin fingers tracing slow circles along the edge of a worn book. He looks up and smiles softly, but his eyes carry a different weight today. You've come, he says quietly. You feel it growing, don't you? You swallow, throat dry. There's no point in denying it. He would only smile and say, "The devil works best when unrecognized." You sit where he gestures, on the low wooden bench beneath the heavy crucifix. The Christ above you hangs silent, stone eyes half closed, as if he has grown tired of the wait in this village. Father Emmerich begins speaking softly, his voice a calm stream flowing through an anxious forest. "The enemy is clever," he says. "He does not always shout. Sometimes he whispers. Sometimes he simply waits, watching for hearts softened by sorrow. You stare at the cold stone floor beneath your feet. The cracks between the slabs form thin, winding paths, like roots or veins or old maps leading nowhere. You are vulnerable, but you are not lost. We have prayers for this, rites to strengthen your soul." The words fall gently, like snow, soft, cold, heavy. You nod slowly, because what else can you do? To protest would invite suspicion. To resist might suggest collaboration. Agreement is safer, even if it offers no comfort. He steps closer, lowering his voice to something almost tender. "There are precautions we must take," he whispers. "Not an exorcism, not yet. Only small prayers of cleansing, minor protections, simple rituals." The word hovers in the air. Exorcism. A quiet threat dressed in mercy. You've heard the stories. Everyone has. How a priest, robes heavy with symbols, chants for hours. How the afflicted twist and scream, their voices not their own. How villagers gather outside to listen, pretending to pray, but only watching, waiting, whispering. Exorcism is not medicine. It is performance, a public peeling of the soul. Father Emmerich smiles gently. "There's no shame in vigilance," he says. "We guard the soul before it falls. You are still strong. We will keep you strong." He places a small vial into your hand. The glass is cool against your skin. Inside, a thick oil swirls faintly, smelling of bitter herbs and old earth. "Anoint your door before you sleep," he instructs softly. "It keeps out wandering spirits." Wandering spirits, as if sadness could attract them, as if your sorrow shines like a beacon in the dark. You nod again, because it's easier than asking questions, because you are tired, so very tired. The priest steps back and begins to hum softly, a chant you've heard since childhood, words older than the village, older than your sorrow, older perhaps than even the fear that lives here. You sit quietly, letting his voice wash over you. The low, steady rhythm pulls at your heavy eyelids. The warmth of the chapel presses against your skin, soft and slow. Outside, the day moves on without you. The village breathes. Chickens squabble near the well. A dog barks once, then falls silent. And above it all, hidden behind the thin clouds, the moon waits again. Even in daylight, always watching, always patient, always near. The chant fades. The silence returns. "You are safe," Father Emmerich whispers, as much to himself as to you. "But you know better.
Safety here is a fragile thing, a word people use when they mean you are not dangerous yet. You rise slowly. The vial of oil feels heavier in your hand than its size should allow. You thank him quietly, because gratitude is expected. As you step back into the cold air, you feel the eyes, not the priest.
The days have grown shorter, or perhaps they only feel that way. When time is measured in silence, it becomes difficult to tell. You sit alone now, not in your small home, not beneath your thin blanket, but here, in a small stone chamber behind the chapel. A cell, they call it, a place for reflection, for protection, for healing. The walls are close, cold. The stones breathe with the damp air, softly weeping moisture that collects in tiny beads along the cracks. Water that falls from nowhere, like tears from a wall that's seen too much. The door does not lock, not officially, but it does not need to. You do not leave, not because you are forbidden, because leaving feels heavier than staying. Father Emmerich visits you each morning. He brings bread, a little broth, and quiet prayers. Sometimes he places his hand gently on your shoulder, offering comfort that feels more like observation. You are strong, he whispers. You are resisting. You nod, though you feel no strength, only stillness and the growing hum behind your eyes, the quiet sense that your own mind has grown crowded. Marta visited once. She brought a pouch of lavender, tucking it into the corner of the cell. The scent calms the thoughts, she said softly. The monks use it. The scent does little. The heaviness remains, but you are grateful for the kindness. The world beyond these walls moves without you. You hear it sometimes, the market stalls being set, the hammer's rhythmic clang at the forge, children's laughter, the occasional sob of someone grieving a child lost to fever. Life continues, but not for you, not yet. Here, you are apart, set aside, for your own good, they say, and for theirs. You think of the words you've heard whispered through the village. Isolation weakens the demon's grip. Silence starves the darkness. The devil cannot dwell where there is no sin left to feed on. You tried to believe this, but in the quiet, the whispers inside your own mind feel louder. Not voices, not yet. Just thoughts that no longer feel entirely your own. Soft suggestions, heavy questions, endless wondering. What if you never leave this room? What if you are not fighting a demon, but becoming one? What if this sadness is not possession, but transformation? The church teaches that sin opens doors, that melancholy invites temptation, that sorrow is a spiritual wound, a hollow place where wicked things might nest. They do not see sadness as grief, they see it as weakness. And weakness
as invitation. You close your eyes. The scent of lavender drifts faintly through the damp air. The soft scratch of mice echoes in the cracks of the stone. Your breaths fall into slow rhythm. Even here, in isolation, you feel the presence. Still patient, still close, still waiting. The moon visits less often now, hidden behind thick winter clouds, but you still sense it beyond the sky, always near, always watching. You wonder what it would say if it could speak, if it could answer your quiet question, am I still me? You try to pray, as Father Emmerich constructed, but the words feel heavy. They fall flat against the stone, as though even God grows tired of listening. Time slips strangely here. Days melt into nights without warning. Dreams blur with waking thoughts. Memories lose their edges. Your past feels less like a story, more like a fading sketch drawn in water. You have become smaller here, quieter, but not lighter. The weight remains. It always remains. And somewhere, behind the stones, beneath the clouds, above the trees, the moon continues its patient vigil, silent, unblinking.
The bells sound different today. Louder, faster, more eager than before. The villagers call it a festival, though there is little joy in their faces. The festival of healing, they say, as though naming it kindly might soften its edges. Father Emmerich stands at the chapel door, his robe freshly washed, the embroidered cross gleaming faintly in the pale winter sun. His voice is calm as he speaks to the gathered crowd. His words are soft, but the eyes watching you are not. You step forward slowly, not by your choice. They guide you gently, carefully, hands resting lightly on your back and shoulders, polite but firm. The village square is full. Faces you know, faces you don't. Men, women, children. Some whisper softly, others simply stare. You wonder which of them prays for your healing and which simply came to watch. The wooden platform creaks under your feet as you are seated in the center. A simple chair, but somehow it feels larger, more exposed. You sit quietly, because what else can you do? You have become the spectacle, the lesson, the entertainment. Father Emmerich raises his hands slowly, his voice rising like morning fog. "We gather in mercy," he begins, "to lift the weight from our beloved, to remind the darkness that it holds no claim here." The crowd responds in soft unison, murmuring ancient phrases that have lost their edges from repetition. He steps closer, a small flask in his hands. The oil smells sharp, bitter herbs and something metallic beneath. He traces the sign of the cross across your forehead, his fingers cool and steady. "The enemy has found no welcome here," he whispers, "but still it lingers." The people watch. You feel their eyes, curious, afraid, hungry for proof. You've heard the stories of other festivals. The young woman who shrieked and convulsed when the oil touched her skin. The old farmer who screamed names no one recognized. The boy who collapsed and wept for hours. Proof, they said, that the devil had been present, that the prayers had driven him out. But you remain still. Your body offers them nothing. No screams, no gasps, no twisted voices. Only silence. Father Emmerich continues, his chants flowing steady as a stream, Latin words you do not understand but have heard since childhood. Each phrase feels older than the stones beneath your feet. He lifts a small relic wrapped in silk, a fragment of bone from a long-dead saint, or so you've been told. The object trembles slightly in his hands, though perhaps it is only his breath. He intones, "By these holy remains the unclean shall be cast out." The crowd leans in, eager, expectant. Still, you remain quiet. The weight in your chest sits unchanged, neither fleeing nor rising, simply there. You feel the sun on your face, cold and pale as winter light always is. The wind curls softly around your ankles, carrying with it faint scents of animals, ash, and cooking bread from nearby homes. The world continues its slow breathing, even as you sit, exposed, empty. The ritual moves on, more chants, more prayers. The priest's voice grows louder now, pressing against the silent crowd like a hand against glass. He proclaims, "The wicked one is driven out, the soul is restored." The crowd responds with a soft cheer, not loud, not joyous, but relieved, as if their duty has been fulfilled, as if your healing is proof that the village remains safe, even if you do not feel healed, even if the weight remains. Father Emmerich places his hand on your shoulder once more. "You are strong," he whispers, "stronger than you know." The villagers begin to drift away.
The festival dissolves into muted conversation. The children return to their games. The blacksmith resumes his hammering. The world, as always, moves forward. You stand slowly, the chair creaking beneath you as you rise. The priest smiles. The people smile. And yet, within you, the silence grows deeper, thicker, more familiar. You walk back towards your small home, your steps slow. The wind hums softly in your ears, like a voice too faint to understand. And above, hidden behind thin clouds, the moon has risen again, watching, always watching.
The days pass, or perhaps they simply fade. The village returns to its rhythms, the same voices, the same footsteps, the same quiet hunger that lingers in every home. No one speaks of your healing anymore, not because they are certain you are well, but because it is easier not to ask, easier to let silence do the work, easier to believe that prayers always succeed. You rise each morning, you eat what little there is, you nod politely at familiar faces, and you carry the weight within you. Still heavy, still quiet. The whispers no longer feel foreign. They have become familiar company. Not frightening, not comforting, simply present. The heaviness behind your eyes remains, like a stone that settled long ago, too deep to lift. You've learned to carry it, as others carry their own burdens. The loss of a child, the absence of rain, the quiet fear that winter will arrive harder than before. Father Emmerich still nods kindly when he sees you. Marta still leaves small bundles of herbs near your door. The physician no longer visits. There is nothing more to cut, nothing more to drain. The village believes you are better, and perhaps, in some way, you are. Not cured, but quieter, still, accepting. At night you sit by the small fire. Its soft crackling fills the room like a lullaby without melody. The shadows stretch along the walls, dancing gently with each flicker of flame. Your brother sleeps peacefully, his breath slow, untroubled. His world smaller than yours, simpler. You look toward the small window again. The sky is clear tonight. The stars hang like tiny embers. And there, as always, the moon. Full. Silent. Unmoving. You wonder if it watches anyone else, or if it only watches those like you, the quiet ones, the forgotten ones, the ones who carry weights no one sees. The moon knows many stories, most never told, most never remembered. What if history never remembers you, not because you failed, but because you were simply too small to notice? One quiet life among countless others. No great battles, no heroic deeds, no songs sung in your name. Only days and nights and soft breaths shared with shadows. Perhaps that is enough, or perhaps it has to be. The fire fades, the room cools, the world outside breathes on without you. The weight in your chest settles like an old friend, neither kind nor cruel, simply familiar. You close your eyes. The silence wraps around you, thick and soft. The moon watches, content to say nothing. You sleep.
and the world forgets. Gently, quietly, as it always does.
It is quiet. So quiet, you can hear the silence itself. It moves like a soft blanket over the village, folding into the corners, filling every empty space. You wake slowly, not because you want to, because you must. The thin wool blanket scratches against your skin as you shift. The straw mattress beneath you whispers as the dry stalks crack and settle beneath your weight. The faint smell of smoke lingers in the air, last night's fire barely smoldering in the stone hearth. And beneath it all, dampness. That wet, heavy scent of old stone, always breathing, always watching. Your eyelids flutter open. The light is weak, gray, seeping in through the cloth that hangs loosely over the small window. Morning, perhaps. But in this village, morning is more a suggestion than a promise. A rooster crows somewhere, its voice sharp and thin. Not because dawn has arrived, but because the rooster is simply impatient. Even the animals here cannot keep time. You sit up slowly. Your head feels full again, not aching, heavier than that, as though your thoughts are soaked, swollen, and slow. You look toward your brother, still curled up beneath his blanket, breathing softly. You envy him. His sleep remains untroubled, for now.
The hunger in your belly curls gently, as familiar as your own breath. There will be bread today, perhaps some broth if Marta brings it. Not enough, but enough to continue. You hear the village waking, faint and distant, the clatter of buckets near the well, the creak of wooden cartwheels over damp earth, soft voices trading quiet news, and the steady tapping of the blacksmith's hammer somewhere far off. The world outside moves on, but you sit still, wrapped not only in wool, but in something heavier, something you've carried for longer than you can remember. The priest calls it melancholy. The physician calls it imbalance. Your neighbor calls it weakness. You don't know what to call it anymore. You only know its weight and how easily it grows heavier at dawn. You glance toward the door. The wooden latch barely holds. It does not need to. There is nothing here worth stealing. Only a small, tired life, too quiet to attract much attention. You breathe slowly, and then, without warning, a thought slips gently into your mind. What if history never remembers you? What if your days slip by like this, quiet and forgotten, until even your bones turn to dust beneath these fields? No stories, no songs, no names passed down. Only quiet and the soft, steady passing of days. The thought does not frighten you anymore. It has become an old companion, whispering in the background of every sunrise. A strange kind of comfort. If you are forgotten, then your sadness cannot shame you. Your emptiness will dissolve with your name. You stand slowly, bare feet pressing into the cool dirt floor. The cold bites gently at your skin, a familiar morning greeting. You drape your wool shawl across your shoulders. The rough fabric scratches your neck, but you pull it tighter. Warmth is rare. You take what you can get. A soft knock on the door breaks the stillness. Not loud, not urgent, but deliberate. You hesitate. No one visits this early. Another knock. You step forward, the latch clicking softly as you lift it. The door swings open with a creak. A man stands before you, tall, wrapped in a heavy cloak, his beard unkempt, his leather bag slung over one shoulder. Bottles clink softly inside the bag as he shifts his weight. His smile is thin, polite, but his eyes are not smiling. They are watching, measuring, weighing you. "I am Master Aldrich," he says softly, "physician." The word hangs between you like a curtain of smoke. You nod slowly. There's nothing else to do. He steps inside without invitation, his boots squelching faintly against the damp earth floor. The door creaks shut behind him, closing you in to...
Master Aldrich moves carefully. Every gesture is slow, measured. His tools glint softly in the pale light as he lays them across the rough wooden table. You sit still. Your hands rest on your knees. Your breath moves in slow, shallow waves. Even now, the weight remains inside you. Quiet, heavy, unchanged. The physician unwraps a strip of linen, winding it tightly around your arm, just above the bend of your elbow. The cloth bites gently into your skin, pressing the blood upward, waiting for release. "This will be brief," he says softly. Do not fear. You nod again. The words feel distant, like echoes inside a deep cave. He selects a thin blade, its edge fine and narrow. Not large, not violent, but precise. Just sharp enough to let the blood speak. He lowers the blade gently, placing it against the soft skin inside your arm. A small pressure, a brief sting. The cut is shallow. And then, the blood rises, slow and dark, flowing into a small ceramic bowl he holds beneath the wound. The room smells faintly metallic now, that familiar scent of iron, of earth, of life slipping quietly into the bowl. Master Aldrich watches the flow closely. Not too much, only enough to satisfy the old teachings, enough to restore balance, or so they believe. You watch, too. Your blood swirls gently in the bowl, thick and dark, reflecting the flickering light of the small hearth fire. The physician hums softly, his voice like a low lullaby. Not for you, perhaps for himself, perhaps for the room. The body remembers, he whispers. It seeks harmony. We remind it where to look. You wonder, if sadness lives in the blood, how does it know when to leave? How much must be drained before you are lighter? Before the heaviness loosens its grip? Before your breath no longer feels borrowed? Master Aldrich carefully removes the blade, pressing a folded cloth firmly against the small wound. The bleeding stops quickly. Your arm feels oddly hollow, as though part of you has drifted away. He sets the bowl aside, its surface dark and still. The blood will be disposed of quietly. No one speaks of where it goes. Perhaps to the earth. Perhaps to God. Or perhaps nowhere. The balance is better, he says softly. You will feel relief soon. But you know better. The weight remains. It always remains. The physician wraps your arm with fresh cloth, tying it gently. The pressure is firm, but not painful. A small reminder of today's work. A mark of care. He begins to pack his tools again. Each blade wrapped carefully in its cloth, each bottle returned to the leather bag. The clinking of glass and metal fills the room like soft bells. As he works, he speaks quietly, almost conversational, as though discussing the weather. Some say sadness comes from bad blood, thick blood, slow blood. He glances toward you, as though expecting agreement. You remain silent. It's easier that way. He continues. Others blame the stars. The moon pulls at the brain, they say, just as it stirs the oceans. You've heard this before. Everyone has. The moon governs madness, lunacy. Luna, the name itself whispers the connection. When people weep for no reason, when their minds twist into knots, when voices whisper to them from empty corners, the moon is blamed. Its silver eye watches too closely, pulling at thoughts like threads, tangling them, gently, not violently, just enough to confuse, to loosen, to unravel. Master Aldrich shrugs softly as he lifts his bag and says, There are many causes. The soul, the blood, the air, the heavens, perhaps all of them. You nod again, because there are no answers, only rituals, only habits dressed as remedies. He pauses at the door before leaving, his voice dropping to a near whisper. But remember,
Sadness left unattended invites darker things. Darker things. The phrase lingers in the air long after the door closes behind him. You sit alone again. The fire crackles softly. The scent of blood and old wool mix in the air. Outside you hear distant voices in the village square, faint and scattered. Life continues. The world does not wait. You glance toward the window. The sky has darkened now. The moon has risen. Not fully round tonight, but watching, as it always does. Its pale light spills across the floor, drawing long, thin shadows along the stones. You breathe slowly, the weight in your chest unchanged, the thoughts behind your eyes still full, still crowded, still softly humming. But for now, the world is quiet, the fire is warm.
The morning air is colder today. The thin mist hangs low, curling around the village like soft fingers. The ground beneath your feet is wet, the earth heavy from last night's quiet rain. You walk slowly toward the chapel. The small stone building rises from the mist, its old walls damp, its wooden door sagging slightly in its frame. The bells do not ring this morning. The silence feels heavier without them. Father Emmerich stands near the entrance, his thin frame wrapped tightly in his worn robe. The fabric is patched and faded, but clean, always clean. He greets you with a soft nod, his eyes searching your face, not unkind, but watchful. "You've seen the physician," he says softly. A statement, not a question. You nod, because that's what you do, because words feel heavier than silence. He gestures for you to follow. Inside, the chapel is dim. Candles burn low along the stone walls, casting long shadows that sway with every flicker. The air smells of melting tallow, old wood, and faint incense that never fully leaves the stones. You sit where he directs, beneath the carved figure of the crucifix. The Christ above you hangs in silent agony, his face both peaceful and distant. Father Emmerich sits across from you. His voice lowers, gentle as always. He begins, "The physician treats the body, but the soul needs different care." You know these words. You've heard them whispered in every home, every sermon, every funeral. When sadness lingers too long, when the heart grows too heavy, the church begins to watch, to listen, to worry. There are dangers in grief. The mind weakens, the heart softens, and in those soft places, the enemy whispers. He leans forward slightly, his voice dropping further. "You know this, don't you?" You swallow. Your throat dry. You nod again, because it's easier than asking what happens if you say no. He studies you for a moment, eyes narrow, but calm. Not cruel, just careful. "There are prayers for this," he whispers. "Simple ones for now. We catch the sickness before it grows." The sickness. The creeping belief that sadness is not simply sadness, that it may be something darker, something with a voice, something with intent. The church teaches that sorrow invites temptation, that prolonged melancholy might be more than imbalance, that it might become possession.
The soul, a house that must remain clean, lest something take up residence. You feel the weight in your chest press a little deeper. Not from fear, from knowing. You have become a question they intend to answer, a door they intend to close. Father Emmerich continues softly, his voice almost kind. You will come to confession. Each evening, after the bells, we will cleanse the soul as the physician cleanses the body. You nod, because you know resistance is louder than submission, because you are tired, and because part of you hopes, faintly, that perhaps they are right. Perhaps prayer will lift the weight. Perhaps silence will loosen its grip. Perhaps someone still knows how to fix what has broken. The priest smiles gently, reassuring, practiced. You are strong. You have not allowed the darkness to root itself. We will keep it from taking hold. The words feel thin, like old cloth stretched too many times. But you nod anyway, because what else can you do? He rises slowly, placing a soft hand on your shoulder. The gesture is light, but its meaning is heavy. You watch as he steps back toward the altar, his figure swallowed gently by the flickering shadows. Outside, the mist has thinned. The village breathes quietly. The day continues its slow unraveling. You step back into the pale light. The wind moves softly across your face, carrying faint scents of damp earth, smoke, and distant baking bread. You pause, and once again, your eyes drift upward. The sky is pale blue now, but the moon still lingers faintly in daylight, a pale ghost behind the clouds, watching, always watching.
The days continue, soft, slow, gray. The weight behind your eyes remains, not heavy enough to crush you, but never light enough to forget. It sits, patient. Each evening, you visit Father Emmerich. You kneel beneath the carved cross, speaking softly behind the thin wooden screen. You confess your sadness, your fears, your emptiness. He listens, his voice always gentle, always certain. There is no shame in struggle, he whispers, but we must guard the soul. Sadness is not sin, but sin waits in its shadow. You nod, because the words offer a strange comfort. Simple rules are easier than uncertain truths. The world outside the chapel moves on, unchanged. The blacksmith's hammer still sings its rhythm. The children still chase each other near the well. The baker still sells yesterday's bread as today's blessing. And each night, the moon rises. You've noticed it more these days, not because it is brighter, but because it feels closer, as though it leans toward you, watching, listening, waiting. The villagers speak of the moon in hushed tones, whispers carried easily through thin wooden walls. The moon pulls at the water, Marta had once said. She had smiled softly as she stirred her herbs, but her eyes had not smiled. You've heard others say it too. When madness comes, when grief lingers, when minds unravel, the moon is blamed. It pulls at the oceans, at rivers, at wells, and if it can pull at great waters, Why not at the wet places within the head, within the heart, within you? The old men in the square nod gravely when they speak of it. The moon stirs the black bile, they say. When it is full, the humors rise. Master Aldrich, the physician, had mentioned it once, his voice quiet, as though speaking to himself. The moon governs more than we know. When the sky swells full, so do our troubles. You wonder sometimes whether it is true, or whether people need something to blame, something they can see, something distant enough to feel safe, yet close enough to explain what they fear. You step outside into the cold night air. The fire at home has dimmed. Your brother sleeps, his soft breathing rising like smoke into the still room. You walk quietly, careful not to wake him. The village square is empty now, the day's voices long faded into sleep. The moon hangs above you, full again, large, round, silver, unblinking. Its light spills softly across the stones, stretching your shadow long behind you. You pause beneath its gaze. The world feels smaller beneath its pale light, softer, more fragile. What if the moon knows you, not as you wish to be known, but as you truly are? What if it sees the cracks inside you, the parts no one else dares mention, the quiet corners where your thoughts slip, where your fears curl, where your sadness hums softly like an old, tired song? You close your eyes for a moment. The cool breeze moves gently across your face. The weight in your chest shifts slightly, not easing, but settling. You breathe slowly. The moon breathes with you, silent, present. It has watched others before you. It will watch others after you. Always watching, always patient, always waiting. You return to your small home, the door creaking softly as you step inside. The fire's last embers glow faintly. The room smells of damp wool and cold stone. You lie beside your brother, pulling the thin blanket around your shoulders. The weight remains. The moon watches, and sleep drifts toward you, soft and slow, like fog rolling over empty fields. You let it take you, because it is easier to wonder.
The morning brings no sun, only a soft gray light,
slipping quietly through the thin cloth that covers your small window. You sit at the edge of your bed, bare feet pressing into the cool dirt floor. The fire has died, its last breath long gone in the night. The weight behind your eyes lingers, not sharp, not cruel, just present, as steady as your own breath, as steady as the earth beneath you. A soft knock breaks the silence. Not the physician, not the priest. You open the door gently. Marta stands there, her thin hands wrapped around a small bundle of cloth, her gray hair pulled tight beneath her scarf, her eyes calm but heavy with a kind of quiet knowing. "I've brought something," she says softly. You step aside. She enters without hesitation, as if she's done so many times before, in many homes like yours. The room fills quickly with the faint scent of herbs, earthy and sharp. She lays the bundle on your small table, unwrapping it slowly. Inside, dried leaves, roots, and tiny glass jars. "Physicians cut," she says gently, "but sometimes the earth speaks softer." She begins to work, grinding the dried valerian root into a powder, mixing it with warm water and a touch of honey, stirring slowly as if the rhythm itself carries some quiet power. Valerian, a root known to ease troubled sleep, to calm the restless mind, to settle the vapors, as they call them. The vapors, that invisible mist they believe rises within the body, filling the head, thickening thoughts, pulling the mind away from peace. You've heard the words many times. The brain, they say, is full of wet humors. When they rise, the mind clouds, sadness grows, fear follows. No one knows how the vapors truly behave, but they name them anyway, because names offer comfort, even to the ignorant. Marta hands you the cup. The drink is warm, the taste bitter, earthy, with a sweetness that tries but fails to hide the root beneath. You drink slowly, because she is watching, because you hope, faintly, that perhaps the earth knows something the physician does not. She speaks softly as you sip. In the cities, they burn herbs to cleanse the air. Lavender, rosemary, frankincense. They say the bad air carries illness. Miasma, the invisible poison. They believe sickness floats through foul air, seeping into homes, into lungs, into minds. She glances towards your small window. The air here is always damp, always heavy. It sinks into the skin. It feeds the black bile.
You nod because the words are familiar, because they sound like wisdom, even if they change nothing. She sets a small bundle of dried lavender near your bed. The monks say it quiets the restless. The scent fills the room, sweet and sharp, layered over the familiar dampness of wool and stone. Marta watches you for a moment longer, then reaches into her pouch again. She places a thin strip of cloth into your hand, woven tightly, with small symbols stitched in uneven thread. For your door. Protection. You trace the stitches with your thumb. Simple patterns. Circles. Crosses. Old symbols, older than the prayers Father Emmerich recites. Not church doctrine, but village tradition.
The days blur. Not fast, not slow, just soft, like distant bells fading into mist. You move through each morning, each night, as though walking inside a dream that never quite ends. The weight behind your eyes never leaves, but you've grown used to carrying it. It sits inside you like a stone beneath deep water, silent, heavy, unmoving. The herbs Marta brings soften it sometimes. The prayers Father Emmerich whispers offer brief moments of stillness. The bloodletting slowed weeks ago, though Master Aldrich still watches you with careful eyes whenever you cross paths in the village square. But the whispers have begun. Not inside your head, not yet, but outside, among the others. Soft words carried like threads through open windows, passed like small coins in quiet hands. The sadness lingers. He grows quieter. Perhaps it waits. You hear them, even when they pretend you cannot. The villagers do not speak openly, but the old fears live beneath their silence. The fears that sadness, if left too long, becomes something else. The physician spoke once of humors. The priest speaks often of sin, but the villagers whisper of shadows, of spirits, of dark things that slip quietly into open hearts. The devil never roars, they say. He whispers, and sometimes he simply waits for an invitation. At night, in your small room, you begin to feel it too. The fire crackles softly in the hearth, its light dim and flickering. The lavender still hangs near your bed, its scent faint, like a memory slowly fading. You lie awake, eyes open, watching the shadows on the walls sway gently with the flame. The wind outside hums softly. The trees groan under the weight of winter's breath. The house creaks. The straw mattress whispers beneath your weight as you shift. And somewhere beneath all of it, you feel something else. Not a voice, not a presence you can see, just a pressure. A quiet awareness that something is near, or waiting, or watching. The church teaches that grief opens doors, that prolonged sadness weakens the soul's defenses, that unhealed wounds invite company. You close your eyes tightly. You whisper silent prayers beneath your breath, the words clinging to you like thin threads. But the pressure remains, soft, steady, unmoving. You remember the stories Marta once told,
of those who heard voices when no one stood near, of those who laughed at funerals and wept during weddings, of those whose eyes grew distant, as though seeing something far away or someone no one else could see at all. At first, they called it sorrow, then sickness, then madness, and finally, something darker, something not of this world. You feel your breath grow slower, heavier. The room around you breathes with you, its silence thick as wool. The moon has risen again tonight, full, round, pale. Its silver light spills through the small window, cutting thin lines across the floor. The shadows stretch long, like black threads.
The days blur, not fast, not slow, just soft, like distant bells fading into mist. You move through each morning, each night, as though walking inside a dream that never quite ends. The weight behind your eyes never leaves, but you've grown used to carrying it. It sits inside you like a stone beneath deep water, silent, heavy, unmoving. The herbs Marta brings soften it sometimes. The prayers Father Emmerich whispers offer brief moments of stillness. The bloodletting slowed weeks ago, though Master Aldrich still watches you with careful eyes whenever you cross paths in the village square. But the whispers have begun. Not inside your head, not yet, but outside, among the others. Soft words carried like threads through open windows, passed like small coins in quiet hands. The sadness lingers. He grows quieter. Perhaps it waits. You hear them, even when they pretend you cannot. The villagers do not speak openly, but the old fears live beneath their silence. The fears that sadness, if left too long, becomes something else. The physician spoke once of humors. The priest speaks often of sin, but the villagers whisper of shadows, of spirits, of dark things that slip quietly into open hearts. The devil never roars, they say. He whispers, and sometimes he simply waits for an invitation. At night, in your small room, you begin to feel it too. The fire crackles softly in the hearth, its light dim and flickering. The lavender still hangs near your bed, its scent faint, like a memory slowly fading. You lie awake, eyes open, watching the shadows on the walls sway gently with the flame. The wind outside hums softly. The trees groan under the weight of winter's breath. The house creaks. The straw mattress whispers beneath your weight as you shift. And somewhere beneath all of it, you feel something else. Not a voice, not a presence you can see, just a pressure, a quiet awareness that something is near, or waiting, or watching. The church teaches that grief opens doors, that prolonged sadness weakens the soul's defenses, that unhealed wounds invite company. You close your eyes tightly. You whisper silent prayers beneath your breath, the words clinging to you like thin threads. But the pressure remains, soft, steady, unmoving. You remember the stories Marta once told, of those who heard voices when no one stood near,
of those who laughed at funerals and wept during weddings, of those whose eyes grew distant, as though seeing something far away or someone no one else could see at all. At first, they called it sorrow, then sickness, then madness, and finally, something darker, something not of this world. You feel your breath grow slower, heavier. The room around you breathes with you, its silence thick as wool. The moon has risen again tonight, full, round, pale. Its silver light spills through the small window, cutting thin lines across the floor. The shadows stretch long, like black threads reaching towards you. You wonder if the moon knows what waits inside you, if it recognizes the shift, the change, the quiet erosion of yourself. What if it sees what you cannot? What if it waits for the moment when you are no longer fully you? The thought slips through your mind like a thin, cold blade. You pull the blanket tighter around your shoulders, not for warmth, for weight.
The chapel feels colder today. The stones beneath your feet breathe out a slow, damp chill that seeps through your thin shoes, curling softly around your ankles. You sit where Father Emmerich directs, beneath the same worn cross, beneath the same silent Christ who hangs above all questions. The candles burn low, their flames flickering quietly, casting long, thin shadows that sway across the stones. The priest watches you for a long moment, his hands folded neatly in his lap, his eyes patient but measuring. "You are strong," he begins softly. "You continue to fight." You nod, because the words require no answer. He leans forward slightly, his voice lowering as if sharing something meant for only these old walls to hear. "But we see signs," he says, "small ones, changes that concern us." You hold your breath, your fingers tighten softly in your lap. "The enemy works quietly," he says. "He waits for sorrow to settle, for grief to soften the edges of the soul. Then he whispers, and sometimes he waits inside that silence." He pauses, watching your face, as though waiting to see whether the words strike you, whether they land somewhere close to what you already feel. You keep your face still, quiet, because any emotion might be misread, any tear mistaken for evidence, any tremble seen as proof. "We must act early," he whispers, "not with force, not with violence, but with care." The words fall like soft snow, cold but delicate. "There are rites we can perform," he says, "small ones, prayers of cleansing, anointing, protection." He smiles gently as if offering a gift. "Not an exorcism," he adds quickly, almost reassuringly. "We are not there, but the word has been spoken now. Exorcism. It hangs in the air like thick fog. You've heard the stories, the whispered accounts of those who underwent the ritual, the heavy robes, the holy water, the relics held high, the prayers shouted loud enough for the entire village to hear, the screaming, the twisting, the spectacle, the shame. Father Emmerich's voice stays soft. "You are not lost." Another pause.
The door closes behind you with a hollow sound. Not a slam, not a lock. Just the quiet weight of wood against stone. You sit on the narrow cot, the straw mattress stiff beneath you. thin linen pulled tight across it. The small stone room smells of damp walls, cold earth, and old prayers whispered too often. This is not your home. This is the chapel's rear chamber, a place for reflection, for protection, for healing, they say. The priest calls it temporary solitude, a space to allow your soul to strengthen, to close itself against unwelcome whispers, away from the village, away from temptation, away from wandering spirits. The walls are close here, the small window barely wide enough to let in light. The air thick with quiet, the kind of silence that wraps itself around you, pressing gently from all sides. Each morning, Father Emmerich visits. He brings a small bowl of broth, a piece of bread, and a few gentle words. "You are strong," he whispers. "You are resisting." You nod, as you always do, because what else can you say? Because your words feel heavier than your silence. The lavender Marta left still hangs from the corner of the cot. Its scent faint now, fading into the thick, cold air. Once Marta visited too. She brought a bundle of herbs wrapped in cloth. Her fingers lingered on your hand a moment longer than needed. Her voice quiet, tired, but kind. Even strong ropes fray under weight. "You are not weak," she whispered. The words warmed you more than the broth ever has, but they faded quickly once she left, as all words seem to do here. The hours drift softly, measured by nothing but the shifting light from the small window, the dim flicker of a candle, and the slow cooling of your own breath. You listen often to the scrape of mice in the cracks between stones, to the distant creak of the chapel's old beams, to the wind sighing softly outside, pressing its cold hands against the thick stone walls. Sometimes you hear distant voices, villagers in the square, the blacksmith's hammer tapping faintly, children laughing near the well. The world continues, life continues, but not for you, not here, not now. You have become set apart, for your own good, they say, and for theirs. They believe silence weakens shadows, that fasting purifies the mind, that stillness starves temptation, that distance protects the village. You are both patient and danger, both suffering and warning. You lie back slowly, staring at the rough ceiling above you, following the uneven lines between the stones, cracks like crooked rivers winding toward nowhere. The weight behind your eyes hums softly still, neither growing nor fading, like a quiet guest who has long overstayed their welcome, but now feels like part of the house itself. You wonder if anyone truly knows what lives inside you, if they understand what they fear, or if naming it gives them comfort even when they cannot see it. The church says grief invites darkness, that sorrow can become a door, that emptiness might be mistaken for invitation. Perhaps they are right, perhaps not, but you no longer know where your sadness ends and where something else might begin. The candle burns lower, its flame leaning gently with the draft that sneaks through thin cracks in the stones. You close your eyes. Sleep drifts toward you, soft and thick, not like peace, but like surrender, a soft slipping away, the weight pulling you under, as gently as always. Outside, the moon rises again. You cannot see it from this small window, but you feel it, a steady watcher above the clouds, patient as ever, always there, always silent. The world continues its quiet turning. The villagers whisper, the priest prays, the wind sings its soft song, and you sleep. Not better, not worse, just quieter.
The bells ring earlier than usual today. Their hollow notes drift through the cool morning air, carried gently across damp rooftops and narrow stone paths. The village stirs more quickly than most days. Voices gather in soft clusters. Feet shuffle toward the square. Eyes glance toward the chapel. You hear them before you see them, the quiet hum of conversation, the murmurs wrapped in careful words, the nervous excitement they do not say aloud. Father Emmerich comes to your door, his expression calm, his voice soft. "Today we gather," he says, "for healing, for protection." You nod, as you always do, because questions feel heavier than acceptance, because silence is safer than refusal. You are led gently to the square. The air smells of damp earth, of firewood, and faintly of baking bread. Life continues here, even as you move differently through it. The wooden platform in the center creaks beneath your feet. Simple, raised just enough for all to see. Not grand, not cruel, but exposed. The villagers gather around, their faces a quiet sea of polite concern and hidden curiosity. They watch you not with open fear, but with the cautious hope of those who wish to believe they are doing something good. And yet, behind their eyes, a different question hums. Is it enough? Father Emmerich stands beside you, his hands folded, his voice rising gently into the cool morning air. "We gather not in judgment," he says softly, "but in mercy. We offer prayers to cleanse what sorrow has unsettled. We stand together against the enemy's quiet hand." The villagers respond in unison, soft chants slipping from their lips like breath. Familiar words, spoken more from habit than understanding, but habits are comforts, and comforts are necessary. Father Emmerich opens a small wooden box, lifting a vial of oil and a cloth-wrapped relic. The relic, they say, holds a fragment of a saint's bone, long dead, but never silent. He anoints your forehead gently, his fingers cool, his voice steady. "No evil shall take hold here," he whispers. "No shadow shall remain." You sit still, as you have learned to do. Stillness is safer than reaction. Any movement, any tremble, might be seen as something else, something waiting inside you. You've heard the old stories. The woman who screamed at the touch of holy oil, the boy who convulsed at the chant of the priest, the farmer who wept for hours beneath the relic's weight. Proof, they said, that the demon had been forced out. Proof that the ritual worked. But you remain quiet. The oil slicks across your skin, cold, then warm. The relic hovers briefly near your head. The prayers continue. The villagers watch. But nothing stirs inside you. Only the same quiet weight, the same steady hum behind your eyes. Father Emmerich's voice grows louder, the chant rising with each repetition, pushing back against the soft wind that winds through the square. The soul is claimed. The enemy is driven out. The villagers respond with a quiet cheer, relief more than joy. A ritual completed, a danger managed, a village protected. You are led gently from the platform. No celebration follows, only soft nods, polite smiles.
The people return to their work. The market opens again. The forge sings its rhythm once more. The world continues, as it always does. Father Everick places a hand lightly on your shoulder. "You are strong," he whispers, "stronger than you know." You nod, because that is what they wish to see. And perhaps, somewhere beneath it all, you wish to believe it too. You walk slowly back to your small home. Your brother waits there, his eyes bright, his face simple, untroubled. He asks no questions. He only smiles. And you are grateful. You sit quietly by the hearth. The fire's glow soft and steady. The lavender still hangs above you, its scent fading, but present. The weight remains, not heavier, not lighter, simply steady, simply there. The shadows on the walls stretch with the flickering flames. You follow their slow dance with tired eyes. And outside, as always, the moon rises once more. Pale, full, silent, watching. It offers no comfort. It offers no threat. It simply remains, as you remain, as you always have.
The village returns to its rhythm. The rituals have been performed, the prayers spoken, the oil applied, the relic raised, the danger managed. The people speak little of you now, not because you are forgotten, but because forgetting feels safer than remembering, easier than wondering, cleaner than doubt. You move through each day quietly. The market still smells of old bread and damp wool. The blacksmith's hammer still sings its simple song. The children still chase each other beneath thin gray skies. Life continues, as it always does. The weight behind your eyes remains, still steady, still soft, still yours. No one asks if you feel better. They see you standing, walking, breathing, and they choose to call it healing. Even Father Emmerich's visits grow shorter now, his words lighter, his smiles easier. The threat has passed, he believes, or at least he chooses to believe, as do they all. You sit by your small hearth each evening, watching the fire shrink slowly into soft embers. The lavender above your bed hangs dry now, its scent almost gone. The herbs Marta once mixed have long since been used. The cuts Master Aldrich made have healed into thin, quiet scars. Marks of care, marks of confusion, marks of old hope. You breathe slowly, feeling the soft pull of sleep, as familiar as the weight you carry. The weight has become part of you, not an enemy, not a guest, just presence, like the wind outside, like the fire's breath, like time itself. You've stopped wondering whether it is illness, or spirit, or sin, or fate. Perhaps it is simply life, and perhaps that is enough. The fire sighs softly as it fades. The wind hums through the small cracks in the wooden door. Your brother's breath rises gently beside you, steady and peaceful. You glance toward the window. The sky is clear tonight. Thin stars blink above, scattered like forgotten seeds across dark fields. And above them all, the moon, full again, pale, unmoving, silent. It has watched you through it all, through each prayer, each ritual, each quiet confession, each silent night. You wonder if it watches anyone else this way, or if it has always watched those like you most closely,
the ones who carry quiet burdens, the ones no one truly sees, the ones who slip through history without song or story. The moon offers no answer. It only remains, patient, content, endlessly still. You close your eyes. The world softens around you. The fire's breath slows. The weight inside you settles once more, neither heavier nor lighter, simply there. And you sleep, as the moon watches, as the world forgets, softly, quietly.